Welcome in, brand new Jock Market Power Hour for this week's Wells Fargo Championship. I'm Rick Gaiman, that right there. Joe Idoni. Joe, good evening. Happy Wednesday. Happy Elevated Wednesday.
Happy Elevated Wednesday. Happy Power Hour. Hello to everyone who is joining us for the show. Excited to do it once again and talk Jock Market Open IPO for the next 45 minutes here or so.
It's fantasy golf, but a little bit different. It is modeled after a stock market where you can bid on shares of golfers. And when this IPO closes around 9 p.m. Eastern time tonight, so about 45 minutes from now, if you're watching live and you're one of the high bidders, those shares get allocated to you. If you don't like a golfer, Joe, you can short them. And then as the tournament begins, that's just when the fun begins because it's live trading in the same way that you could trade in a market. So a new, different way to play fantasy golf.
Yeah, different way is a great way to put it. It is unique in a sense. And I honestly think that last week was a great example of why Jock Market is different. And the classic example, of course, was Jon Rahm, right? He went for the highest IPO by, I think, nearly $3 that we had ever seen in the Jock Market. He didn't win. So if you wanted to bet Jon Rahm last week at 2.5, 3 to 1, you lost all your money. If you wanted to bet a top 5 on Jon Rahm last week, you ended up having to lay out more money than you got back. He was about minus 150 in the top 5 market. So while you hit that bet, you ended up having to lay 1.5x for every dollar that you were returned. He finished second in this event. You paid $15.51 for the IPO, and you ended up getting back about 1.3x on your money, making you 28.9% ROI. And incrementally that goes down. But I think the other thing to understand that a lot of people get lost who don't really follow Jock Market that closely is if he doesn't top 5 and he misses his IPO just barely, you're still getting money back incrementally per share. As you see the payouts there, 25, 20, 18, 16, 15, and so on down the list. So it is absolutely a different and unique concept, and I find it extremely fun, and I'm sure many of the people here do as well.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to look at it is you're trying to determine whether a golfer is going to beat their expectation or not. Jon Rahm's expectation is obviously very high, especially compared to someone like Adam Long, who has a much lower expectation, but both of them can return a profit if they beat their own expectation. And the other thing is, you're right. It is not all or nothing. There is, if a guy just misses their expectation, that's better than missing it by a mile if you are investing in them, right? So it's a different way to think. Every payout spot being different adds to the game. And really, I've said this a million times, but I feel like I haven't said it in a while. My favorite part about this is that realistically, this is the only place where every single golfer is available for you. Right. I mean, if you're playing on a DFS site, yes, technically everyone is available, but not really. And everyone kind of gets to the same, maybe 40 or 50 guys. This is really, if you think the worst guy in the field is going to finish, 61st, you can make money on that, right? There's just no other place for it.
Absolutely nothing else like it. And you mentioned it opens up the entire 144 players or however many that you have in a field. Realistically, right? We're at another elevated event. What have we seen thus far in elevated events? You can probably shrink the outright odds board down to maybe 10, 12 guys realistically who have a good chance of winning this thing. Like you mentioned, other DFS formats, you may take a 6K or someone in that 6 to 7K sort of range, but there's about 3 or 4 guys typically which everyone gravitates toward. Everyone's on the board in the 6. Everyone down there in the $2 range is on the board and has an expectation level. And the reality is when you go sort of bottom diving like that, you're just looking for a made cut and to maybe squeak a 48th place finish out of someone, which isn't going to make you money anywhere else except Jock Market.
Yeah, so let's look at we mentioned last week, but just to give you another example here. So this is on my website, RickRunGood.com. All the Jock Market data that's ever been compiled in cash markets is there for free. Go check it out. You can download it. You can manipulate it. You can do anything you want. Tony Finau sold last Wednesday night at $11.65 per share. He got the full $25 per share payout. So that is $13 of profit per share. We already mentioned Rahm at second. Here's Brandon Wu. I mean, look at the names behind the big two. Brandon Wu went from $5.48 per share to $18 per share. Akshay, $4.20 to $16. Emiliano Grillo, $6.32 to $15. Lots of cheap guys in that $3 to $4 range, making you triple-digit ROI returns, despite some of them never even sniffing contention in this golf tournament.
Absolutely. I mean, Akshay and Brandon Wu are great examples, right? Because you got them for $5.48 and $4.20 a share. What you can do there, and the amount of shares that are within every market are a bit fluid. They have the ability to add more if someone's getting bought up. You're never really going to run out. So what's unique about that, in a sense, is you can get 3 shares of Brandon Wu for every 1 share of Jon Rahm, and you see the ROI potential, which actually sometimes makes it a little more risky than, Rahm or Finau to get some of these guys in the $4 range, but also the reward and the potential ROI to 3, 4, 5x on your money is so much greater potential. And it makes it really, like you mentioned earlier, brings everyone in the field into play, and everybody's got a price.
So that is what we're playing tonight. Now, it is another reminder that this is just one side of the game at Jock Market. The other side is the prop pick'em side of things. So that's relatively new. They dropped it for golf at the Masters, and they had released the 4 major sports previously. So as we get into the heart of the NBA playoffs, and as we are in the major championship season, that side of things is available to you as well. We have a promo code. It's $100 deposit bonus. It is power. There is a link in the description if you want to get involved. Very, very fun stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about some specific golfers, Joe. We'll play. Actually, before we do that, you mentioned the field. Let's talk about the golf course a little bit. Quail Hollow. It's one we are familiar with, whether it is not always at the Wells Fargo Championship, sometimes at the President's Cup, sometimes at the PGA Championship, but it is a golf course that we see every single year. Is there a mold of golfer, a type of guy that you will be targeting tonight?
Yeah, so I think the prevailing narratives this week, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you got to have the distance and the carry distance off the tee. The rough is relatively down, so you don't have to worry so much about missing fairways in terms of penalty, and long iron play, right? I think some of the more sneaky or less adapted narratives, maybe a lot of the putting here, because I do find it extremely important. It's very deceptive in a sense. Some of the greens here, there are a lot of missed putts that you're going to see inside of 5 feet. It is one of the more difficult courses to putt outside of 15 to 20 feet. Lag putting is very important. And it's not that their greens are huge or tiny. They're average in size. They're fast, but they're not crazy fast like you would see at Augusta National or Slopey. They're just tricky, man. And the Bermuda grass, particularly this time of year, especially after a big rainy season down here in the Southeast, gets a little bit more grainy and a little tougher to predict. And you look at the guys who have really had success. When Max Homa broke through and won here, he gained 10 strokes putting. When Rory won here, he gained 7.5. When Justin Thomas won the PGA Championship here, he gained over 7 strokes putting. Like, you can be great off the tee, and that's important for success. But ultimately, I think if you want to win this event, you've got to putt really well also.
I love that. Yeah. And this is, remember, we saw this for the President's Cup. As I mentioned, they changed the routing a little bit, but we're back to that traditional 1 through 18 that we would normally see year in and year out. Okay, let's do it. Let's play bullish or bearish. This is where Joe and I pick 4 different golfers and we take a stand on them. That's right, bullish or bearish. Let's just start with Victor Hovland. He is already, Joe, over his fair value for tonight. Yeah, so the fair value is a calculation that looks at how often is he going to win and get the full $25 per share payout? How often is he going to finish second and get 20, so on and so forth. And it assigns a fair value, a price to his potential outcome. Well, that was 759. He is already over that. So I'm going to call it $9. And that would be 14th or better for Victor Hovland. Are you bullish or bearish?
I'm actually still bullish at $9. Very high on Vic this week. The ball striking numbers have been out of this world basically for the past 6-7 events, dating back to basically the Mayakoba in the fall, which would encompass his last 10 events within the jock market, averaging almost 38% ROI. Now the average IPO price in there is just shy of $8. So we're going to definitely exceed that tonight. We probably already have. I haven't looked at the big board, but I do think this is a great course setup for him. I love him on sort of long, difficult golf courses that aren't overly penal if you miss a fairway. He's driving it great right now. The irons are certainly clicking. He's found some sort of combination between the ball and the shaft of the club that all seems to be working at an exceptional level. And I think a third place finish here a few years ago, the year that Rory won, I want to say. Is that correct?
Yeah, the last time we played it at Quail Hollow.
Okay. Okay. Yep. Bullish on Vic, baby. What about you?
Yes, I am as well. You mentioned it. I mean, the ball striking numbers are phenomenal on a golf course that should reward it. The history around here, but I think from a purely jock market perspective, he is a very good buy, right? We have seen him be in final groups, right? Final pairings, be in the mix. And even when Sundays haven't necessarily gone his way, that is still very valuable here compared to in other markets. You look at like some of his recent returns here, the Players Championship in the mix, right? $7.41 gets the $18 per share payout. The Masters in the mix, but doesn't close it out, goes from $6.80 to $12. Those are still profitable weeks. API, same thing. So even when he's close, whether he breaks through or not, he seems to be returning a profit and being more valuable here in this format than a lot of other formats. So yes, find me on the bullish side for Victor Hovland.
Love it.
Cam Young is next. Cam Young is catching some steam. So again, another golfer already over his fair value for tonight.
Is he?
Yeah. So it was originally $766. He's already over $8. Let's call it $950. That's 13th or better on Cam Young. Bullish or bearish?
Bearish. Too much steam, in my opinion. Everyone loves him this week. And it's just ultimately a litmus test for me of the way that I kind of try to attack jock market and sort of a buy low or buy low and sell high mentality. This is one of like, I think he's down in some sports books down to like 18-1, which is the lowest price I can ever remember him being. The popularity in DFS formats is going to be off the charts. Is it a great course fit for him? Yes. My concern is he's still not putting it very well. You look at some of those numbers and I like the match play putting is a little bit of a technicality, like gaining 3 strokes putting there is good, but you just putt differently in match play, right? We all know it. There's certain things you play aggressively and certain things you're just trying to lag up there. I have like, if you factor out the Masters, like 5 of the last 7 starts, he's lost almost over 2 strokes gained putting. I mentioned how important that I do think that is here. I know the fact that he's got Webb's caddy. There are a lot of reasons to like Cam Young, but there are also a lot of reasons that are going to inflate his price tonight in jock market. So I will say bearish for me.
He will get too expensive for me tonight. Yeah, I think that's the way to put it. I do worry about the short game in general, right? I mean, this is not a super difficult place around the greens, but you got to be competent. And he has struggled at times around the greens in the last handful of starts. You mentioned the putter, which again, if he finishes 15th, which would be a very good result at a designated event for someone who's playing Quail Hollow for what, the first time? I think he played. Yeah, because he played TPC Potomac last year. Like
just the President's Cup, right?
Oh, and the President's Cup. That would be a great a great finish, you will lose money on that here
Yeah.
tonight if he finishes T15. So that's kind of where I'm at. I imagine he is going to balloon up, and we're going to see a Cam Young all-time high. I'll keep an eye on that as the night goes on, but that certainly feels like what we're trending towards. Excuse me.
Right.
Rory McIlroy, the favorite in basically every sports book, and has not played since the Masters and has missed cut at the Masters. Which, by the way, Joe, I don't know if you know this. He has won this event 3 times. Twice he did it after missing the cut at the Masters, and then won it in his next start, which is pretty crazy.
I had heard that. Yeah.
950 already. You will not get a deal on Rory McIlroy. Let's call it $11. That's 10th or better on Rory McIlroy.
Probably bearish. I'm sort of torn, man. And I walked this week. I knew I wasn't going to bet Rory. I'm not willing to like expose myself to him in a matchup market because I feel like he's the favorite in every head-to-head matchup. And there's so many unknowns, right? He touched a little bit on it about how everything from the Masters to being the sort of voice of the PGA Tour has really weighed on him mentally, which concerns me a bit. Hasn't there's a technicality in there as well with the match play, but hasn't actually made a cut in an event in over 8 weeks now. It's just been too long. I'm scared of him, but there's like I would come back to like the jock market feels like the safest place for me if I'm going to invest in Rory this week at $11. If that's the price you're giving me, I'm going to say bearish. What about you?
It feels like a trap, and I'm going to walk right on into it. Yeah, I just think, listen, the Masters, it's so hard, right? Like the last 3 results are not, he misses the cut at the Masters, in which he has told us a million times that like that is more of a mental thing than a physical thing. The match play, he has a great run at it, gets to the Final Four, but it's the match play. How much weight do I want to put on that? And the Players Championship, he hits it well. His short game lets him down, and he misses the cut at a place that usually has a lot of big names miss the cut. Before that, runner-up at Bay Hill. I think Rory, at places that he's supposed to play well, plays well. This is like the spot. I mean, there is not a better golf course in the world statistically than this one for Rory McIlroy. So it feels trappy. I'm walking in. I'm bullish.
Okay.
Now, if Rory has the best strokes gained around Quail Hollow, which he does, Rickie Fowler is actually second to Rory of guys that have a big enough sample size. So Rickie Fowler is our final golfer here that we need to talk about. His fair value, 650-ish or so. He's already kind of near it, so I'm going to bump him up to like 750. We'll call it 20th or better for Rickie Fowler. Bullish or bearish?
I'm probably bearish here too. I think the name and I think the recent form and the course history are all going to inflate the number a bit. I look, he's playing great. Even the last time when we saw him a few weeks ago at Valero, he was 810 per share, which had been the highest he had been in a long time in terms of IPO. Still returned you a profit there. Then he followed it up with 549. At the RBC Heritage, returned you a profit there as well. 7 of the last 10, he's been a profitable player within the jock market. I'm just not quite aligned in my view of Rickie right now where I think the public perception is, and that's sort of the name of this game. So I'm going to say bearish because of it.
Okay, so that's I like the way you put that, because in a vacuum, I'm quite bullish on Rickie here and moving forward. But this is the game where you get like there's gonna be a tipping point, right? And if you can stay disciplined on, hey, I like Rickie up to 750, but I'm out after that, and not chasing that. Maybe it's setting your bids and forgetting about them and letting the proxy bids do their thing. But I think he is the guy that you have to be the most careful on, because what you just said, right? He's going to get the Rickie bump. He's going to get the Quail Hollow bump. He's going to get this just the popularity bump. So if you can stay disciplined on Rickie to your number, I'm bullish there. He's just the guy you've got to be the most concerned about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to be fair, like I'm a little bit concerned because he's not great off the tee. And this is kind of one of those courses where I do put a little bit more emphasis on it. But when you look at some of the approach numbers, particularly on difficult long courses. Like you just had up there, I think it was like Genesis, Waste Management. What was the other one that I saw? He had a great approach week. The
Rory.
Players. So these are like relatively long
Yeah.
courses, the Farmers. And he's actually been able, even though he may lack a little distance off the tee, been able to gain significant strokes on the field with his irons, which in turn would lead me to think that he's hitting his 4, 5, 6 iron relatively well right now, which should set up good for this course. Like you mentioned, I'm just quite a little bit behind where the public perception has got to on Mr. Fowler.
Fair enough. Well, that concludes bullish or bearish. We've got about 25 minutes until this IPO closes. So get your bids in right now. If you want to get involved, the code you're looking for, POWER. There's a link in the description and you can get your $100 deposit bonus. And that might get you 8 shares of Rory McIlroy tonight. I guess we'll see here in a second, but I'm about to unveil the big board, our live pricing, and it looks like this. At this moment, Rory McIlroy, $9.50. He is already over his fair value. That's going to ask him to finish about 13th or better. There's another name we talked about in Cam Young, $8.51. His all-time high has already been eclipsed with
crazy to me.
25 minutes to go. Previously, it was 790. Quick scan, 790 at last year's Rocket Mortgage. We're at 851. A third guy we talked about, Victor Hovland, 826, and then a gap. So here's the next tier, Joe. Patrick Cantlay to Max Homa. It includes Jordan Spieth, Sung Jae Im, Jason Day, and Xander Schauffele. That's the current $7 range. Look at this sneaky pre-rank here. Patrick Cantlay, number 1.
You know, I have him, and honestly, I do sort of my own pricing. I have him 1 cent behind where I have Rory. Like, that's how close that I have these two players coming into this event. Cantlay's been so solid. I think the form has been better than McIlroy. The only thing that he's lacking is the exceptional course history that Rory has here. I love the move of the caddy change for him. I just think that he's on a great run, and he has a very high floor when he's on these good runs. Yeah. And Rory doesn't have that. Like, as good as he is, and we know the top end talent, like when Rory's bouncing down the fairways, like he's maybe the best player in the world. I mean, he can, when he's got it going, he's almost better than Rahm or Scheffler. But when he's not, he missed the cut at the Masters, and like he can talk all he wants now about how draining and how physically and mentally taxing this has all been. But that's not what he was saying heading into the Masters. He was talking about how refreshed he is and how he has this new view on Augusta National and how prepared he is and how calm everything is inside of his head, and what a great headspace he was coming into that event. And then everything sort of flips when we hear from him this week. I have concerns there. I have Cantlay's the second best player. Like Cameron Young and Victor Hovland, I think both are good options this week. Cantlay's the guy at number 2.
Well, $7.77 right now, a fair value of $9.01. Jordan Spieth, Sung Jae Im, Xander Schauffele, Jason Day, Max Homa right behind. In the $6 range, certainly no shortage of great golfers, especially this early, about 22 minutes to go or so. That's Matt Fitzpatrick, Ricky Fowler, Tony Finau, JT, and Colin Morikawa. Is there one golfer or two golfers in there that you think are going to end up making your portfolio tonight?
I mean, it's a great price on Tony Finau. We saw him go back-to-back in the fall, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him play really well here again. He's the premier, I believe, long iron player in this field.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and I'm glad you mentioned that, is like there's a lot of similarities of skill sets that would succeed last week and this week. You know, it's not like a completely it's not like we're going from Mexico to Harbor Town. Yeah. Right. Like there's a lot of good skill set crossovers.
Exactly. Love Finau this week. I have him number 3 on my board right behind Cantlay. And Matt Fitzpatrick, like I know you mentioned how different Harbor Town is, but I do feel like we're sleeping on this guy. Like the very last elevated event that we played, he won it and basically didn't get a whole lot of credit for it because we come to the next elevated event and he's maybe the 12th guy down on the odds board. If you look at the last 3 major championships, he's won one of those. He won the very last elevated event where we saw a full field that included Jon Rahm in that event. And he's got the power, he's got the distance, he's got the ball speed. Everything is clicking, and he's gained what is that? Almost 17 strokes ball striking in the last 2 events that he's played. Pretty damn good, on a great run. And I feel like it's been, the narrative around him has been very quiet this week.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, he's certainly not the guy that I was thinking of, where he's not that Harbor Town specialist, man. He's showed that he can get it done at a lot of different places. He's been very, very, very impressive. Going down a little bit further, still great names here, right? Sahith at 572, 670 fair value. Sam Burns, which may be somebody I'm interested in, starting to be figuring it out a little bit, 541. Tom Kim, Keith Mitchell, Wyndham Clark round out the $5 range. Talk to me, Joe.
Yeah, Sam Burns is the guy there. He just wins. It's awesome. And his, actually, you know, we always talk, Rick, about how sometimes volatile Burns has been. Look at those last 6 starts. That's the opposite of a typical profile we see from Burns. The 35th is the worst we've seen him do. He's making cuts. The putting he's gaining in every single event that he's played. The ball striking numbers have really started to come around. So he's that guy for me, followed by Sahith. But I wanted to ask you about the 2 guys right above this range and get your sort of take on him. Justin Thomas and Colin Morikawa. Rank those 2. What order do you have those 2 right now?
Boy, probably Colin, then JT. I still worry about the Justin Thomas putter and how it quickly infiltrates the rest of his game. You immediately, I mean, a hole number 1 on Thursday morning, he misses an 8-footer and we're in it now. Right. And I think that's tough. Now you look at what Colin has done, and at least this is much more on brand, right? He's gaining off the tee. The approach play's been stellar. The short game is good enough, and the putter is volatile in a good way. So this continues to be a really, really good stat profile. I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen Colin close out a victory since, Dubai? No, that can't be right. No, because he didn't win it all last year, right? So yeah, I still think it's Colin. These are 2 guys that it's not like either of them need a win, but it's like shocking we've gone as long as we have with just the one PGA championship win, and it went to JT.
Yeah, you're right in the sense that they don't, like, it's not like a legacy, like they has to happen right now. But I think in both of their minds, they need a win bad.
Right. I mean, I think they're seeing their peers who they think they are just as good, if not better than, and hoist a lot of trophies. And they're wondering, like, well, what the hell's going on here? Why am I not hoisting trophies? So. A little bit further, sub $5. We are seeing movement. Rory McIlroy up to $9.99 a share, so he's going to break through the $10 mark here shortly. Patrick Cantlay right behind at $9.21. Those are the only 2 up there in that range. But let's keep digging. Let's keep digging down into some of the lower portions of this board. Sub $5, Joe, becomes really interesting. You know, I find myself gravitating towards guys like Taylor Moore, guys like Patrick Rogers, guys like Hayden Buckley. Where do you see yourself clicking names and adding them to your favorites list?
There's a couple there. You brought up Hayden Buckley. I was actually shocked at some of the off the tee numbers that he's been able to put together. And he's right up there with guys who have significantly further distance in carry than he does, but he's managing to gain strokes off the tee with the Rorys, with the Cam Youngs, with the Finaus of the world. So he's able to put up those numbers despite hitting it like 285 when they're hitting it 305. So that's been very impressive to me. I do have interest in going back to Gary Woodland this week. I know that the stats are a little bit wonky in the sense that the numbers look better than the actual performances maybe have been. Jack likes him as well here, but I have him. Look, if Finau is number 1 in the field, I think in long iron play, I think Gary Woodland's number 2 for me from like 200 yards. Stick a 5-iron in Gary Woodland's hands right now, and it's ending up about 25 feet from the pin. He's been terrific at it.
I have no concerns with a driver, a long iron, a wedge. I have no concerns about that. It's the short club, the shortest one in his bag, that I have concerns about.
I know. And he had a good week at the Heritage, then a terrible week last week. But here's another guy in this range that I think is also being slept on, similar to Matt Fitzpatrick. And he also has a win in the last month here. Corey Connors. I think this is a great course fit for him. And when I sort of sorted some of the stats that I was looking at this week on long golf on long golf courses over 7,400 yards. He gets a bump in almost everything when he's another guy similar to Buckley who isn't going to carry at 305 and hit it 325 very often. But on courses over 7,400 yards over the last 36 rounds, number one in greens and regulation gained and number two in strokes gained approach. So he's very proficient with the long iron play, with getting in the fairway, which allows him to get a little additional roll out there, and has been very good. And also now he doesn't win anywhere but the Valero, but we're not asking him to necessarily win in the jock market. So a T9 finish for Corey Connors this week will definitely make you some money.
Sub $4. I looked really long and hard at Kurt Kitayama's stat profile today, because I'm like, wow, three miscuts since the win. He made a deep run at the match, but I didn't know what to do with this. Like, I think his game is much better than what he's been showing as of late, and I have not heard his name uttered once this week. I looked long and hard at Kurt Kitayama. I don't know where I stood, but if he's cheap and sub $5, I might take a crack at him.
I have him on the betting card, 125 to 1. Like, if you're asking me to take a long shot on a guy who can win an elevated event, he did it. And it's not like and you know what? It's not like it was one of those weird ones where he ends up down the stretch with Hayden Buckley and Steven Yeager. Like, he fended off Rory and Tyrrell Hatton on his ass. So he had a pretty good notable win there. Adam Scott, I thought I saw him there, but I don't anymore. I do have some interest in, as he's had some good rounds and some good history at Quail Hollow. I have him top 10 in the field here. Still top 20 in driving distance at his age. The approach numbers are really good on long golf courses as well. So I do like Adam Scott's chances a little bit this week as well.
Yeah, it's so funny because this is another stat profile I pulled up earlier today, and I was like, wow, he's really struggled on approach, but he still finishes really well. And I looked at it, and it's basically just one bad round a week. And if we can get 4 good rounds out of Adam Scott, like 3 of his rounds every week are great. And then he's got that one bad round that, causes issues. Let's go to the penny stocks here, get to the second page of the board. This is guys that are currently sub $3. Are we buying Cam Champ coming off of a T8 in Mexico? You also have like Alejandro Tosti, who had a great week, top 10 in Mexico, played his way in here. Matt Neesmith, who I think you and I were very, very high on in the fall, has done nothing. Now he made a pretty good run at Zurich with his partner. Is that good enough, right? Like, what are we looking for here on clearly a different class of golfer?
It's tough here because I think the golf course is going to prohibit some players like a Neesmith from competing. But, in the other sense, maybe it's an opportunity to get a little bit of a price break on the guys that don't hit it well. Brendan Todd is someone I have a little bit of interest in, who's certainly one of the shorter in the field. I don't like Cameron Champ, who you mentioned this week. I'm not very high on him. Jimmy Walker's had a bunch of good finishes in a row. So maybe it's an opportunity down here to sort of go contrarian in a sense and fade the driving distance narrative and just look at guys who have managed to put together like 25th through 40th finishes. If you're able to do it in a place like Mexico at Vedanta, then you can probably do it here again as well if your irons are really clicking.
Yeah, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier in the week, but like, while this golf course is going to reward what we've talked about, great ball strikers, guys that generally hit it a little bit further, decent around the green, that the leaderboard 1 through 10 is not going to be the ball strikers 1 through 10, right? Like, it is not. There are going to be guys that pop. We've seen Brian Harmon play well at this event. Yes. Like Brendan, like the guys, there are going to be some guys like that. So I like the idea of using the cheaper end of the portfolio, the lower risk side, if you're only getting in for a couple bucks, to kind of take those chances.
That's exactly kind of what I was thinking.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we've got about 11 minutes to go or so in this IPO. The other thing that we probably should mention is if you're looking at these crazy, a lot of guys already over their fair value for tonight. Rory McIlroy, $10.33. That's asking him to finish 11th or better. If you do not like Rory coming off a long break, missing the cut in 2 out of his last 3, you could short Rory McIlroy at Quail Hollow. Sounds scary, but it is possible for you to do because you can short in IPO now. You'll have to put up the difference between whatever the price is and the first place amount, but it's now the opposite. If they go below their expectation, you are making money off of that. So multiple ways to get involved. The code that we have for you is POWER. There's a link in the description. It'll get you another $100 deposit bonus. Joe, I want to turn this around and look at this from the pre-rank, which is important. That's what breaks ties. We mentioned that Patrick Cantlay is number 1, so he breaks all ties. Looking at this top 10, the cheapest top 10 golfer that you can get right now is Max Homa. What's the state of the union on Max Homa? Twice a winner at this event, once here and once at TPC Potomac, and hasn't played particularly great coming in. Are we sleeping on Homa?
I do think we are. Yeah, I bet him this week. I think that the Heritage, I'm not going to fault him for that miscut. I think that he poured a lot into the Masters, and it just didn't quite work out for him. The Zurich, I'm writing that one off as well. But before that, even API and Players are events that I don't think normally would be great fits for Homa's style game. 14th and a 6th there. Going back, he was obviously phenomenal in California. We've seen him just do it, man. And when he figures out a game plan and a strategy for a golf course, it's been very repeatable for him. We saw him do it at Riv. We've seen it at Torrey Pines. We've seen when he's able to sort of be in his element and just know what the course is going to require of him. And it just instead becomes more of a test of execution than it is of answering the questions, because he already knows the answers to this place. Now it's just about going out and executing. I think that that's oftentimes when we see him play his best. And you've got to have a guy, like I mentioned, the importance of putting here. And Max is a guy who's unbelievable from 5 feet. He makes about as many 15 footers as anybody. He is a great putter and very proficient tee to green. I think that he is being a little bit overlooked in a sense. And if he's going to be the cheapest guy right now within that top 10, I will be a buyer.
Look at the activity coming in right now on the right-hand side live. I mean, 4 seconds ago, Stuart Sink gets a bid. Jason Duffner gets a bid. Here comes Adam Scott. Oh boy, here it comes. Balls, BAWS. Oh, that little big man, Mile High. He's usually in the chat. They are rolling in right now on all different golfers. There's a Colin Morikawa bid. So things are certainly heating up right now in the market, Joe. I'm going to let you out of here in just a couple of moments, but let's talk about your portfolio and what it might look like. How many golfers, these elevated events have kind of thrown a big wrinkle into our world here in the jock market. How are we best dealing with it on your end?
Yeah, so I've been a little bit more open to paying up for some of the guys at the top in this event, and that's worked out pretty well for me in the past. I still think it ultimately comes down to you have to make the right decisions, because there are going to be 3 or 4 guys in the top 10 that are going to lose you money. You just got to find those right choices. But typically how I like to build my portfolio is right around 8 guys every week, which I stick to. I try to get anywhere from 10 to 20 shares of those players, depending on their price point. And I get a little bit of each range, right? I got kind of a smorgasbord of a couple at the top, a couple down low. And then I like to stack those $4 and $5 range guys, because I do feel like they hold the highest upside. Now, strategy does change, as you mentioned, a little bit in the elevated events. When you get the strength of field in a week like this, it's a little bit different than the Mexico Open, right? Where you can take some more long shots. If you really want to strive for that $25, $20, $18, $16 payout, you're going to need some Xanders or Finals or Cantlays or whoever in your world that you have up there, and you have favorited in your profile right now to end up with some shares of those guys.
All right. I love it. Well, Joe, we are going to let you get out of here and go do your thing. Joe's going to go bid on his golfers, and he's going to see if he can put together a nice portfolio for another winning week. Good luck to you, Joe. I will also note that my big board is down. So I am going to do this with the app. It's the beta app, or the web version of the app, which is very nice to have. So let me show you this. Boom. Rory McIlroy, $10.33 per share, with Patrick Cantlay right behind at $9.55. So it's seeming like these two are carving out a pretty good 1-2 position for themselves, because there is a pretty solid gap down to Cameron Young at $8.61, with Xander Schauffele at $8.55 and Victor Hovland at $8.30. $7.30. The only other golfer above $8 is Tony Finau. Jordan Spieth is here. The currently the seventh most expensive golfer, $7.89. That's asking him to finish 18th or better. When I look at Spieth, I look at a guy who's got all the ball striking in the world right now. I look at a guy that went 5-0-0 at the President's Cup at Quail Hollow. When he walks back onto those grounds, he's going to have plenty of good vibes. And then Sung Jae Im, who we haven't really talked about, $7.52 at the moment. That's 19th or better for Sung Jae. Well-rounded golfer. Seems like he's got a high floor at the moment. Tough to pass up there. Look at that. Talk about Jordan Spieth. Here come the bids. The bids flying in on Jordan Spieth just 6 seconds ago. The prices are moving and things are happening on the board here. You can see it in real time, actually, right? 10:51 for Rory. I don't even have to refresh this, do I? I think I can just continue to roll on. But the code you're looking for if you want to get involved is power. There's a link in the description. It'll get you $100 deposit bonus. These prices are live. That's sick. I should be using this every single week. Okay, so I don't even have to refresh the big board. It's refreshing for me. We've got about 5 minutes to go here. You just saw Tony Finau jump to $8.55. That's a 15th place finish or better. He's now the fourth most expensive golfer. I'll zoom out a little bit so we can see more of these guys at once. But this is a board that's heating up, and it's going to close right around 9 p.m. Eastern time. Let's go down to like the 20th and lower guys. Yeah, here we go. These are guys that are currently right now asking you to finish 30th or better, right? So we've got Corey Connors, who just bumped up to $5.34 a share. Joe mentioned earlier that he is a golfer who plays well on long golf courses, and it has that win at the Valero Texas Open from just a couple of starts ago. Keith Mitchell, there's an elite skill set, $5.31. That's 32nd or better for Killer Keith Mitchell. And
I'm trying to see if you could see my bids coming in here.
I'm sure if I was paying attention, I could. They're flying through. They're only staying up for a minute, but I see a lot of very familiar names. Sheerdog, I know that name, right? Like some very familiar names rolling through here, getting some love. So I'll keep an eye out for you, bud. It's pretty cool to see it this way. It's like giving me there's Denver Timmy. I know him. He just put a bid in on Joel Damon. Yeah, this is fun to see it this way. A little bit further down the board here. Chris Kirk, haven't mentioned him, $4.50 a share. That's only 38th or better. We just saw Patrick Rogers bump up to $4.59 a share. I like P. Raj, right? What did he do last week? Got better every single round and should be getting another good spot for him, right? Drives it well. He can get hot with the putter. Decent little golfer. He's been knocking on the door a little bit. So yeah, don't mind Patrick Rogers, currently the 30th most expensive golfer that we have in the market right now. We've got about 3 minutes or so. These bids are flying in. It's a little stressful watching them all happen, but I do love it. I'm looking for Joe. I haven't seen him come through yet, but they're going so fast. I might be missing him. Bo Hostler coming off a couple of decent finishes. He's $3.92 a share, 42nd or better. If you think Bo Hostler can finish 42nd or better, you can buy him at $3.92. You go put a bid in on him. Going a little bit further, the penny stocks. We know we have guys in the chat that love the penny stocks. Eric Cole's been awesome. 306, 51st or better for that price. Harry Hall, the opposite kind of guy of what we would like, but he's the opposite of what we would like all the time. Much more reliant on the putter, much more reliant on the short game. He's $3.01. That's 51st or better. Let me scroll back up and see what the top of the board looks like here. Rory McIlroy still $10.55. Patrick Cantlay is closing the gap a little bit. He's at $9.92. Here comes Victor. Wow, you can see it changing in real time. Victor up to $8.35. So we've got a pretty interesting little board. We've got tier number 1, Rory. Tier number 2, Cantlay. And then tier number 3 is Cam Young, Tony Finau, Xander Schauffele, Victor Hovland in the $8 range, with Jordan Spieth trying to break through and get his way in as well. I'm trying to see a little bit of movement further down the board here. Colin Morikawa and Ricky Fowler are back-to-back, 14th and 15th. They have to finish about 23rd or better to turn you a profit. Sam Burns at 6. Someone bid on Sam Burns, 642. That's 25th or better. Where is the Sam Burns love? Let's see. He's the 17th pre-ranked golfer. He's barely over his projected pre-rank. Wow. Pretty good stuff from Sam Burns here. Let's see if we can get him moving up the board a little bit. We've got about maybe 60 seconds to go. Maybe less. This thing's about to close. There's a lot of bids coming in right now.
Oh, we're closed.
I was going to say, I think I just saw it flash close.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So doing it, that was interesting. So doing it this way, I can see exactly when it closes. I don't have to refresh and I can see the movement. It's very aggressive because all the bids are coming in at the same time. But
Yeah.
that's an interesting way to look at it.
It is very cool. Yeah, I like that.
That was scary.
We might have to keep that up.
Yeah, we might have to rock and roll with that. So
how many do you have to is it easier for you to see a lot of the guys in the other way?
It's easier for me to see a lot of the guys, and it's easier for me to click through and see what their results have been.
Got it. Yep.
Yeah, because it just opens up on the right-hand side of the page as opposed to opening up a new page and then me having to kind of back out of it. But I don't know. I could get used to that.
Yeah, it's nice for the last 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, Joe, before we unveil the big board here, why don't you tell us who ended up in your portfolio?
You got it. Patrick Cantlay at the top, $9.93, just shy of $10. At $8.36, I got Victor Hovland. I think we set the bullish and bearish line at like $9, so he went well under that. Happy to get some Vic action. In the $7 range, Sungjae Im at $7.63, Max Homa at $7.36. I think both of them were undervalued this week. And then you mentioned this guy late, and I was hoping we didn't see a rush in on him, but I did get Sam Burns action at $6.42.
That was stupid at what he was sitting at.
It was a great price on Burns, right? I talked about Corey Connors, got him. I talked about Adam Scott, got him. We talked about Hayden Buckley, got him. Ryan Gerard and Dylan Wu were my sort of penny stocks. Wu has just been printing money for me every week, so I'm just going to keep going back to the well until he does me dirty one of these weeks.
That is Cantlay, Hovland, Sungjae, Homa, Burns, Connors, Scott, Buckley, Ryan Gerard, Dylan Wu for Joe. And I saw there were people dropping in their portfolios. Kevin bought too much. Brett got Burns, Fitzy, Victor, Corey Connors, and Patrick Rogers. We've got Gust with Sungjae, Fowler, Burns, Connors, Wyndham, Clark, and Siwoo. That's pretty good. Eddie got Homa, Fleetwood, Hadwin, and Bradley. So definitely lots of different portfolios taking shape here right now. And that opens up live trading, which is still going on right now. Look here. Here's hoodies on an ask on Siwoo, T-Wall, an ask on Wyndham Clark. There's a bid on Carson. There's a trade. Look, Jordan Spieth just got traded at $9 a share, coming in real time. This is pretty sick. But here's the final pricing, Joe. I got my board back up here. So Rory McIlroy, 1055. That is asking him to finish 11th or better. You like it or not?
It's a reasonable price on Rory. Like I mentioned, I had him very close with Patrick Cantlay, so I took a little bit of a discount there. But I think if there was any market that I could really get behind a Rory play this week, asking him to basically finish 11th or better in Jock market with a little bit of flexibility if he doesn't quite do that, we know the upside is there, I think is a pretty good buy. You can more than double your money on a win, which is what you're looking for on the top price guy, I think.
Patrick Cantlay, 993. We talked about that. And then, everybody lined up behind. It would have been pretty hard to kind of rank these guys. I mean, you could have put these next 5 in any order. It's Finau, Young, Schauffele, Victor, and Jordan Spieth. All absolutely deserving of being there.
Yeah, the one that sticks out to me is Homa, just because I don't know that I agree that he's behind Thegala or Thomas this week. I don't know that I agree that I think he's probably more in line with like Sungjae Spieth in terms of pricing. So you're catching like almost a 60 to 70 cent discount there, which I like. Fitzpatrick was one that I probably, looking back on it, think that that's a worthy price and worth a bid. Colin Morikawa is interesting, how he's kind of fell down the board and is sandwiched right between Fitz and Ricky there, which is probably one of the lower prices we've seen Morikawa go for recently.
This Sam Burns number is criminal. 642. Yeah. This guy won. First of all, he won the match play. Okay. He's been great since. if I remember that President's Cup correctly, he was phenomenal, and Scotty Scheffler drug him down like Sam Burns was phenomenal there, and the record doesn't show because he was stuck with Scotty Scheffler for 4 days.
Yes, you're right. Sam Burns was carrying that team, and he was doing everything. He was hitting the drives, he was hitting the approach shot, he was hitting like 65-foot putts that he was hooping in. He was doing it all, and he's playing great right now.
That Adam Scott, which I think, yeah, you got shares from well below his fair value. So very good buy there. 464 on a fair value of 613. So that's asking Adam Scott to finish, 37th or better. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be tough to pass. Let's see if anything interesting is on the second page. Not particularly. Dylan Wu. Love Dylan Wu. You got shares of him. Three straight winning markets and 6 of his last 7. So you're not kidding when you said he's been printing money for you.
Yeah, he's been really good. Toasty ended up doing some good things last week and got sort of the sponsor's invite here. So a little bit more popularity. So nice to see him get back in the field this week. Carson Young's been pretty good too. Yeah. I saw some people had him, but there are definitely some options on that second page. And as we see every week, if you can get one of them to finish, I don't know, like 8th place, they're going to be one of the higher ROI guys for the entire week.
Yeah, and just a reminder that now live trading begins, right? You're seeing it over here on the side. Bid on Cam Davis and ask on Quinn Riley, a bid on Taylor Moore. It's happening. You can go and get involved right now and continue to be involved for the next 4 days as this tournament continues to play itself out. And you'll have round by round opportunities for prop entries, which you can make and rock these guys from a couple of different angles. So should be lots of fun. Joe and I will be back to do it again next week. Well, we encourage you to use the code POWER. There's a link in the description. Get your deposit bonus. But we've got next week, Joe. Then we've got the PGA Championship. We are rolling right along.
On a great run right now. As you mentioned there at the end, too, they do have the Pick'em side, which is now available in PGA markets. They have round 1 strokes and birdies are better options out there as well. Look forward to seeing you next week for, did you say it was Byron? Is it Byron?
Byron Nelson, yeah.
Okay, so Byron, I think, is it at Craig Ranch again?
That sounds right. I've admitted
Craig Ranch. Then we get to Oak Hill. Exciting run through the rest of the summer as majors start flying off the board. We got Memorial in there. We got some good events coming up, and I'm excited to cover it all with you for Power Hour.
Follow Joe on Twitter at TorPicks. You can find me at RickRunGood. This has been your Jock Market Power Hour for the Wells Fargo Championship. Good luck.